looking at the famous sculpture called the Dying Gaul in the Capitoline Museum in Rome, and this is a copy of a sculpture that dates from the 3rd century BC, the original. So this is a Roman copy, once again, of an ancient Greek original.
But a Greek sculpture that would have actually come originally from Pergamum on the coast of what is now Turkey.
Right, in one of the areas that was a Greek colony.
And it was to commemorate an important battle over a group that the Greeks would have looked at as barbarians. It's interesting because in earlier Greek history, if this Gaul was to be represented as defeated, he would have been represented as a barbarian, as somebody who was inherently less than the Greeks. And although I think you could still make the argument that that's the case, if you look at his hair, it's sort of roughly handled.
Hey there, YouTube. I'm Yukitsu. This is the Yukitsu Times. Total War. Today we're going to be talking about the Arverni, the last barbarian faction. These guys are
one of the sort of more refined ones, I suppose, and they sort of live relatively close to Rome. And they've got a pretty decent variety of troops, but the way they work is a little bit strange, so we'll go over that as we go over their units. Anyway, let's look at their generals. They've got the spear nobles, the noble horse, and the oathsworn. These are all highly trained elite units. They're all very expensive, and they're all very good in combat. Now, for a general unit in particular, since these guys don't have the option of a cheap general to hide in the back, I happen to like the oathsworn noble horse, as they are not shock cavalry, are also very good options for their generals. They can stick in there, fight away, and eventually tear through an enemy unit, unlike shock cavalry that gets ground down. So these guys are all both pretty decent. The spear nobles for a general is a little bit more, you want to hang back, you want to keep a defensive general. The problem is that they aren't really quite as good as the other two at combat necessarily, so they're going to usually end up out of the fight a little bit faster if they get stuck in against a more powerful unit. And they're still just as expensive, so I generally tend to like the oathsworn. I would take the spear nobles only if I needed a rear guard against cavalry. Moving on to their different classes of melee infantry, this sort of epitomizes how the Arverni work. They've got a really weak melee unit that costs a little bit too much, the Celtic Warriors. They're not actually a terrible sword unit, it's just that they're not great. They've got the Naked Warriors, who have a very, very, very small armor, but they've got very good offensive statistics, and they're relatively cheap, 580 unit. They've got really, really good base morale, so these guys will stick around a lot longer than you would expect. They do get killed really quickly, though, on account of not wearing any clothes, so do watch out for that. And then lastly, we've got the Oathsworn, who are their elite heavy infantry. They're very expensive, they're very high quality. They're probably better than... I think the Suebi Swordmasters might be the only ones that are better directly in melee than these guys, maybe the Galatian Royal Guard. The fact that they've got the ability Headhunt is what really makes them more powerful, I think, than most of the more civilized ones, Headhunt being a ridiculously powerful ability. Next up, we've got our melee cavalry here, and this is again divided up into light, medium, heavy, essentially. They've got the light horse. This is actually a fairly effective horse unit, but they are a bit fragile. They are 5'10", so it's a big discount compared to their other options. If you're going to pick light cavalry with any faction, you would probably do it with the Arverni, since theirs is actually about as good as a lot of other factions' medium cavalry. They've got decent all-around statistics, and their melee defense makes them pretty potent. Next up, the heavy horse. These guys are the main cavalry line for these guys, and they're very, very good for their cost. They're 650, probably one of the best medium horse units in the game, and they just have outstanding statistics for their cost. And last up, of course, is the noble horse. This is their hero horse unit, very expensive, very powerful. This is probably one of the most powerful melee cavalry units in the game for cavalry fights, simply because they've actually got the charge defense expert, which lets them basically completely crush other cavalry in a charge exchange. So these guys can do an excellent job against other cavalry. And of course, they're also the ones with encourage, so mixing them in with your heavy horse lets them bolster your line of cavalry a little bit. Next up is the spear infantry. Once again, we've got this lousy, medium, and good model going here. The levy freemen.
Peasants, you don't really ever want to be using them. They're even worse than the Celtic warriors. Just don't use these unless you have points to fill. They're not even good at intercepting like cavalry around the back. Next, spear warriors. These guys are pretty decent. They've got good armor, they've got good health and morale for their cost, them being a very inexpensive unit, so they're fairly efficient. They aren't going to get any kills done, and they are going to break against pretty much everything that's more veteran than them, which is most units, but they will hold the line for quite some time, especially if you put them in shield wall. So just get them in front of something, put them in shield wall, and make sure that the enemy's pinned in place long enough for you to do something important with that opportunity. And lastly, we've got these spear nobles. These guys are very durable, especially for the Arverni, but they're still weaker, in my opinion, than the oathsworn against pretty much everything that they would ever consider facing. So definitely go with the oathsworn, in my opinion. Spear nobles, they would be excellent against cavalry, but they are slow and they have no real means to catch up to them, so not necessarily the good option. And frankly, the spear warriors are more than adequate against most forms of cavalry in this game. Next up is the missile warriors. This is the only thing that doesn't follow that sort of standard pattern with the Arverni of low, medium, great. But all they've got are the Celtic slingers, the Celtic youths, and the Celtic skirmishers. So they've got a form of slinger, and they've got two forms of javelin throwers. The Celtic youths have pretty much exactly the same statistics as the Celtic skirmishers, except for the Celtic skirmishers for some reason cost more and have less armor, so they're a little bit inferior in my opinion to the Celtic youths, which are cheaper. So I would go ahead and stick with the Celtic youths if you're going to go for javelins as opposed to the skirmishers. But honestly, if you need those shots, because the Celtic skirmishers do fire a little bit faster, you can go with the Celtic skirmishers, or if you just happen to have a little bit of money left over. And lastly, their special unit is the savage dogs. These things, again, I'm considering actually that I should probably take these if I ever find myself up against the Suebi, because the Suebi are all light infantry by contrast. You just send them up against some berserkers, I'm pretty sure they would do a good job of that. But other than that, the savage dogs just don't really do a great job against most units in this game, because most units are far too heavily armored. So they've got some advantages, disadvantages. They're very sort of gimmicky unit in my opinion. They just don't fit in the standard demographic of what you want to have in your field. They are, however, good in campaign, so you can talk about those in terms of campaign later. Okay, sorry about that. Anyhow, the Gallic tribes have warrior society, +1 public order for every war against a neighboring faction. Gallic horsemanship, +1 experience rank for Gallic cavalry recruits. So these guys, they are known for their cavalry by contrast to the other barbarian factions, and they've got very good cavalry because of that. So following that, they've got Gallic craftsmanship, and since they're the only Gallic faction, this all just sort of applies to them, which is +10% wealth from all industrial buildings. As a note, the Arverni and this area around there actually had excellent iron smiths, and they made very, very high quality weaponry and armor, which was actually probably in a lot of ways superior to the Roman swords in some ways in their artistry and their design. So they are actually known for that craftsmanship, and that's why they get that bonus. If people are wondering why on earth barbarians would have that, they were actually very sophisticated in terms of that. Internal power struggles, public order penalty, maximum -4 from presence of Celtic culture, which is their culture. Despite the fact that they're a Gaelic tribe, they're still Celtics. And they're tribal hegemonists, which gives them a moderate diplomatic bonus with all barbarian factions. And this is going to come into play in a little bit, and we'll just see that as we enter the campaign map here, so we'll get on. Okay, and welcome to the campaign map. Here we are with the Arverni here. As you can see, we've only got one city, and it is not a region capital, so we do have that issue hindering us just a little bit here. We've got our scout down here, and our armies, as per standard for the barbarian faction, starts off pretty weak. We've got 2 levy freemen and our general in the noble horse, and that noble horse is what makes this army effective. And in this one, we've got the noble horse as well, but then we've also got levy freemen, Celtic youths, and Celtic slingers. So it's incredibly weak units that are going to be sort of holding us back. And it's going to be something that's going to holding us back for quite some time here. Now, one of the unique things about the Arverni is because these guys have that diplomatic bonus, they can make better use of the politics of Gaul, which is, or the Celtic tribes, which is a little bit superior to the politics of somewhere like Rome. As well, they've also got access to these mercenaries that they can hire, mercenary Gallic warriors, mercenary Gallic light horse, and another one of those. So they start at war with Bibracte, which is a capital region here. And this is actually a very difficult thing to get across. So we're going to actually have to work very hard to take over Bibracte through direct force of arms here. So I'm just going to go ahead and do this here. And in Nemesis, we're going to go ahead and build this. And we're going to go ahead and build an artisan's lodging, which unlocks the recruitment of spear warriors. And spear warriors are a tremendous upgrade over what we've currently got here. And we've also got the option to upgrade our barbarian village. However, our food surplus is tiny, so what we actually have to do is upgrade this to a farm, or to a field rather, which gives us a nice boost to food. So that's quite a lot of our money. We're going to move our army up here.
Get moving! Is that all?
We're going to go ahead and recruit, or no, we're not going to recruit them yet. We're going to recruit them next turn. What we have to do is assassinate this general and take over the city, but this is something that sometimes works and is worth checking for.
You have the ear of my people.
Yeah,
Do not
odds are
waste.
low right now, so we're going to back off on that. We're going to back up this army, so we're going to move these guys over here. That leaves a little bit of unhappiness in Nemesis due to our penalty. We're going to go ahead and recruit our lousy units here, and that is going to be our first turn. I believe that's everything I have to do. So what we're going to have to hope for is a peace treaty with Bibracte, which will open up the opportunity for us to talk to them into joining our confederacy. And since the Arverni are actually very diplomatic, they've got a large bonus to that. And since I've got two armies on their border, he can clearly see that I've got large forces heading towards him. He might get intimidated into fighting me, or avoiding a fight against me and letting me form a confederacy here. So they haven't offered that. So what we're going to have to do here is, well, actually, we don't want to assassinate him just yet. What we want to do is look as imposing as possible, so we're going to recruit these guys. Going to move up to here.
On the move, lads. Is that all? Warriors
And
all!
these guys are going to go ahead and actually, let's just try and see if we can swing this here. And this doesn't always work. They don't always want peace with me, so... Okay, so they are currently not wanting peace from me, so we're going to try assassinating this guy.
The ravens will feast.
Okay, so that leaves their army significantly weakened, so if we do have to assault them, they're at a major disadvantage. So we're going to go ahead and try this again, since this sometimes makes a big difference. And as you can see, did not. Okay, so our spy did, however, level up a little bit, so I'm just going to go ahead and increase his cunning. And
I live to serve the people.
we're going to have to try directly assaulting, potentially.
Laying siege to their hovels.
And we have gotten enough of an advantage that we can auto-resolve, but I am going to get the other mercenaries just so that I've got that extra little tiny bit. And the reason I want to auto-resolve here is it's a little bit easier than fighting these long siege battles.
Laying siege to
Actually,
their hovels. Besieging settlement.
I'm going to check one more time, see if I can get them to join Confederacy. This is pretty much the last thing I can do that's ever
I'm
affected
sure
it.
you have many
Yeah, I know
pleasantries
these
for
guys
me,
also
but
aren't going to go for it, so that is that. And we're going to have to do this direct military, but we've got enough of an advantage that we can auto-resolve it. And that's not the best way to have to do this, but it is the way we're going to do this here. And we're going to go ahead and do that. You're going to... let's go ahead and just occupy it.
your next command?
Now, the problem with occupying, by contrast to the alternative, which was trying to convince them to join our confederation, is that the confederation lets us do this
Stragglers will
where
be left
they
behind.
don't actually have unhappiness. There's no unrest for joining Confederation,
live to
or
serve
there's a
the
lot
people
less
of
if there is.
Gaul.
I do forget. So it's worth trying to get them to join the Confederacy. In fact, it's worth fighting very hard to try and get them to join a Confederacy. But if they can't, then that's all you can really do there. We're gonna go ahead and do that. So once you've got Vibracte, you've now got a capital, but it's not the same region of your other city. You've got this place, which is why it's a little bit iffy as to whether you're going to have enough food or not, depending on whether or not they built enclosed land. So I've actually taken over Vibracte once, and they hadn't built enclosed land there, so we ended up with a food deficit, or actually ended up at 0, sorry, which isn't quite as bad. But as you can see, we ended up in this sort of very central position that's sort of far from anything really worthwhile taking. If we want to unite a province, we have to actually go all the damn way over here, which is way, way away. And Cinnabum is up here as well, so what we would do is go from here to Cinnabum to, I forget the name of this, Nemnetum or whatever. So it's a long walk, and you've also got these allies here. That are part of the Nemosus region, which is capital of Brigadali, which is way down here. So again, you're looking at sort of a very spread out provinces, and what's worse is that the provinces are huge around here, so it takes an awful long time to conquer things. So do as these guys, look very carefully at these
Speak plainly and without
confederation
idle.
options here. You can potentially get people to join your confederation,
My
and it's
friend,
not that
be
uncommon for people to do so. It is rare for them to just outright agree, but as you can see, people like you.
Welcome, worthy
And as you grow a little bit stronger, it's going to get easier and easier for you to do that.
There's a good pork roasting for you.
So,
We
try
will
to do
gladly
these
listen
things.
to your offers, but do not wrap them in lies. The spirits know truth.
And of course they're not going to try that. So we're still too weak for them to agree to these sorts of things, but it's
Greetings,
worth
friend.
trying. It's worth
We will
trying as
speak
hard as you can
together.
to get these. And that's sort of the advantage of the Arverni. I'm having bad luck here this time. I've had other ones where the Bracte and the Limonum joined the Confederation basically on the first turn, which is very nice. But other times you get those ones where for whatever political background reason they just don't want to. So that does make things a little bit more difficult. Now, if you are forced for whatever reason to fight people instead of getting your Confederation, I recommend sort of heading southwards to Massalia. That's an option there. The thing is, I believe that Tolosa is not here. I don't think Tolosa is related to you. Oh yeah, they are. Okay, so the reason I'm recommending Massalia is that they're not related to you by blood. Everyone in this region is around you is related to you by blood, and that means that if you interact with them, they're going to favor you a little bit more than they otherwise would, and they're more likely to join your confederation at a later point in time. So they're much more willing to cooperate with you, and it's always great when you can get someone to join your confederation. You get their army, there's no unrest, I mean, so it's just the superior option all around. The other option is to march forces around all the way up to the north here, to the Iceni Islands of Britain, and take them over since they're not related to you by blood. I believe that there's some factions along the coast as well that aren't related to you, but you're mostly surrounded by relatives, and that makes it very difficult for you to conquer someone that isn't one of your relatives. And most of those you want to keep around. So anyway, that's a look at these guys on the campaign map. Let's go look at them on the battlefield. Okay, and welcome to the battlefield. I've got the Arverni army here, and we're up against the forces of Epirus, so hopefully we'll either give him a Pyrrhic victory or we'll just outright beat him. So what we've got is our center line. It's 4 units of spear warriors. The sword unit that I've decided to take is oathsworn, since Epirus factions tend to just spam elite pikemen, and I kind of need something that can clear them out relatively quickly. And then we've got 3 Celtic slingers, a noble horse, and 3 heavy horse. So we've got quite a very strong sword complement here from these oathsworn. We've got a bit of shooting, and our center line is going to be those spears that we're going to use in spear wall. It looks like our opponent has actually opted for a sort of heavily ranged skirmishing component to his army here. I'm just going to actually scout this out a little bit with one of my cavalry, and I'm going to actually draw these guys out of formation here. So our strategy with these guys is basically just come to grips with our opponent in a manner in which is favorable to us, and be in a good position to hit his archers or whatever range units those were fast before they can sort of respond to my retaliation here. He might even have siege weapons for all I know. Okay, so here's his cavalry on the left flank. He's got, Hellenic Royal Guard and Citizen Cavalry. That doesn't really quite tell me what I need to know here. There's the rest of his forces. Okay, so he has got Peltasts, and he's got Hellenic Royal Guard, and he's got Agrian Axemen. He's actually taking those things. Peculiar. Okay, so we're going to get ourselves ready and in a position to start firing at him, since I don't see a significant number of long range troops here. Okay, so looks like he's moving forward with all these Peltasts. Looks like he's going to want to actually skirmish with me here, which is a very peculiar thing indeed. We're going to get our lines ready to move them forward. Our general's in a spotty place here, but that's fine. I'm going to have to start moving our cavalry in here, since I do need to clear out some of these Peltasts. But I am going to hold my noble horseback in a bit of a reserve. I'm going to start moving our infantry up here, just while he's under sling fire. That's perfectly fine by me. Okay, so we're going to rush our forces forward here. I believe he's got all pike line here for his infantry. Looks like we've managed to smash into a significant amount of his cavalry here, and of course also his archers, or his slingers, or whatever the hell these were, Peltasts, right? So we're pretty well off here on the ranged component of this fight. Going to have to reinforce our cavalry line, however, against this very, very rough cavalry line of his. Let's move our lines up here. We don't want to actually engage this pike line yet. We're not in any position where we can win that. And I just want to make sure I shatter these guys if I can. If not, that's fine. I don't think I can here. Okay, so we're going to move these guys out around and into these Hellenic cavalry, who decided to charge straight into my oathsworn over here, who are pretty decent at killing those sorts of units. So I think he's going to come out the worst for that combat. Now we're going to take out this group too. So Hellenic Royal Cavalry, not good in a protracted melee combat, and you can sort of see that really coming into play here. Okay, so that's going to be that issue cleared up. We're going to want to get rid of these guys quicker, so let's frenzy charge them. Let's get some heavy fire onto those guys there. Let's get rid of these Peltasts if we can. And let's put our spears into shield wall formation. We're going to run these guys back, actually. I want a better angle. We're going to charge this pike group from both sides. And we're going to have to headhunt this group here, so let's go ahead and do that. He's opened his flank up a little bit for me here. That's good. This group, let's have them do that. Let's run our guys in here and raise our banner. Okay, so this is going pretty well for us. In all honesty, he's forced to defend his pike unit back there. And I should be able to take out this Hellenic Royal Cavalry with these guys here. Those pikemen are pretty much dead. I'm surprised. He's fighting down to 6 men. And he's still just wavering. That's amazing. Okay, so looks like my front infantry line is about to falter here. But you know what? That is perfectly fine by me.
Sons of God.
See if we can. Oh no, they're all actually gone. I wasn't paying attention there. Okay, well, whatever. His general's gone. Collapsing in on this unit of pikemen, just like we did that other one. As you can see, our guys running in from the front here are getting their asses a bit handed to them. We're going to shield wall them and then hit trophies. And that will severely reduce the number of casualties we take and maximize the amount of damage we do in a short period of time. So we're going to run our cavalry. The only way to attack a pike with cavalry is from behind.
Oathsworn warriors.
Get our general to start doing this as well. Raise the banner to make our guys a little bit tougher. Okay, and this is where his lines start to chain collapse. And that is the battle. So, probably a slightly weaker opponent, I think. He wasted a lot of his velites against me, or his peltasts, so he could have definitely managed that a lot better. I think that an army with, essentially he's got 7 peltasts is probably a mistake, especially with such a weak front line of pikemen and Hellenic Royal Guard. Not really the best example, I think, of what I could be doing, but as you can see, it was fairly effective against what his strategy was, which was, you know, just hunt down those peltasts, hunt down those agrarian axemen, and murder them before he can get that decisive shooting advantage against me. As you can see, my Celtic Slinger has actually got more kills than his entire shooting group combined, so definitely not well managed on his part for that. We'll have to, you know, we'll have to assume that he's just sort of messed up a little bit. He could definitely have done a little bit more to stop that, but had he done so, I still think I would have had the numeric advantage with my infantry. As you can see, though, my spearmen, all they were doing was fixing these units in place. They all managed to die, but it didn't really matter by the point they all did die. I had managed to achieve my goal, so... Anyway, this has been a look at the Arverni. I hope you found this informative, and of course, I hope to see you all next time.